Good afternoon, metalheads and rockers. As you know, I'm Elton. I'm with Underground Noise WebZine. If you're not keeping your horns up for metal or rock, you're doing it completely wrong. And all I can say is listen to the band called Primal. They're really amazing. They have an album out called Hugh Machine. And I'm talking with Glenn Rogers today about it. This is Webisode number 110. Welcome, Glenn.
Hey, thanks for having me, man. I appreciate you checking out our album.
You're welcome, dude. I was really blown away by it. To me, it sounded like so many different bands. I can't even begin to explain that to you.
I can tell you where that came from because I've been writing this album for about a year and a half to 2 years, uh, all during pandemic, and um, this is basically for me, because everyone knows my history. I've been in a lot of bands from Hyrax, Heretic, Deliverance, a lot of thrash bands. But for me, this was the album that I got to make the way I wanted to make it. So I pulled from all the bands that I love, from like Saxon to Maiden, Slayer, all the genres of metal that I like. Scorpions influences in there on the last song. That's what this album is for me. It's everything I love about metal. That if I could make an album, this is it. So that's why you hear all those influences because those are my influences.
That's awesome. Uh, who came up with the name Primal?
Primal came from our singer Beto, Alberto Zamarbite. He's a singer from Argentina, and he moved to Miami years ago. And basically, he got together with my old Hyrax drummer Jorge and formed the band Primal. So he came up with the name. This is actually our second album. We have a self-titled first album that came out in 2016. And that one, I came in kind of late into the band. The writing process was already going. And so I wrote, about 4 or 5 songs on that record. And so it's more of a mixed bag of metal. It's more of a power metal album, really more melodic than this one. Um, but yeah, it was Beto came up with the Primal name, and so I was kind of the last guy to join, and and here we are.
What do you like better about Hugh Machine than your self-titled album?
Well, for me, because during pandemic we were all on hiatus, so I just started writing, and it's more of a personal album for me because I got to put my heart and soul more into it instead of joining the band. Kind of as the progress was going, I basically was writing, and so like I said before, it's all about my personal influences that are on there. So because of pandemic, I wasn't working with any other band members. I would sit at home, write, demo, and then send them out to the drummer and singer and everybody in the band to learn. And so, yeah, for me, that's why it's different. I mean, there's elements that are still the same because I was on the first record and wrote on it, but like I said, this one's more my style, more aggressive, more primal. Really, actually, the second album's more primal than the first album.
That's really cool. It's got like a little bit of a thrash influence to it too.
Yeah, it has to because that's kind of my bread and butter. I'm still in the thrash world, so like I said, it's that's an influence. Because I was in thrash since 1985, 86. So that's it's got to be there. It's just kind of what I'm known for and what I love.
What's your favorite thing about being a musician?
Um, to create, I think for me, it's about finding, it's just that magic moment where you get an idea and it just starts coming out and and it just flows. You just, oh, I like this part, and I attach it to another part, and next thing you know, I got a song. And so it's all about the creativity.
That's really cool. Creativity is always important. Some people have it and some people don't.
Well, yeah, to me, it's kind of how I define. I mean, other musicians might get upset, but there's a difference between guys who play in cover bands and guys who are songwriters and write. For me, I'm horrible guitar player when it comes to learning other people's music. That's why I'm never in a tribute band, or a cover band because I'm just not good enough to do Tony Iommi like Tony Iommi. You know what I mean? So I just, I'll write. That's kind of how it is.
Yeah, there's only one Tony Iommi and there's only one Glenn Rogers.
Well, thanks, man.
As far as I know, I don't know anybody else named Glenn Rogers, just you.
There's a jazz guitar player and a serial killer with the name Glenn Rogers.
Oh,
Yeah.
well, maybe we could talk about that some other time.
I found that out when I was on tour with Hyrax. We were in Germany, and a reporter, press guy was asking. He goes, "How does it feel being named after a serial killer?" I'm like, "What?" And apparently, it's like a truck driver, like in Texas, who would pick up hitchhikers and kill them. And I think he's on death row, or he's already been executed. I'm not sure, but yeah, his name was Glenn Rogers, and so I was really surprised when I heard that.
That is coincidental.
Yeah, yeah. It's not me. It's the other guy.
Was this all pre-planned?
You have to wonder, right?
Yeah, sometimes it makes you wonder. I mean, I don't know too many people named Al Denton, but I'm sure there's a few of them out there.
They're definitely, if you look it up, you'll find a few.
I wouldn't
They're
doubt it.
all on Facebook too, by the way.
They're all trolls, not this one. I'm Al Denton official, so that's why I put it on Facebook that way.
Exactly.
I mean, it'd be pretty funny if you were to put official Al Denton because you got Al. It's kind of like redundant a little bit, you know. So
Yeah,
I wanted it to stand out so people know that I'm the original Al Denton.
there
So
you go.
why not?
Well, that's me, Glenn with two N's. It's usually one N, but
Yeah.
I don't know. I was born with two N's, so there you go.
Hey, there's nothing wrong with having an extra N.
Yeah,
That'd be funny if my name was Alexander with two N's. It'd be like Alexander.
yeah, exactly. I'm Glenn from the Valley. That's what my wife jokes with me.
That's hilarious. Well, do you guys have any upcoming shows?
Right now we don't. We are searching for booking agents and trying to, yeah, to get something going right now. So because the thing about our band is our singer's in Miami and we're here in Los Angeles, so we have to do a little more work when it comes to gig planning because he has to fly out or we have to fly out. I know there are talks about touring down in South America. Um, no dates yet, but I know that is being planned. Um, so American dates, like I said, we've been looking for a booking agent, and I know in Ohio I got a show coming up with Deliverance. I'm going to meet with an agent there, and so hopefully we'll have some dates soon. But right now, nothing booked yet. So we're just pretty much in rehearsal mode and feelers out, and any promoters and bookers, hey, contact me. I'm really interested in listening. Any gig offers, hey, would be fun.
Speaking of Deliverance, that's a name I haven't heard in years.
Yeah.
When you mention
Yep,
that, it takes me way back down to Weapons of Our Warfare.
that's right. That's right. Yeah. Yeah. Well, we were playing back. We did a new album in 2018 called Subversive Kind. And then we kind of did a mini tour in Europe. We went to Scotland and Germany at the Headbangers Open Air Festival and a few dates here in America. And then pandemic hit. And, Jimmy kind of likes to take a break and work on solo stuff. So he took well, how many years break? 3 year break. Um, and then we got offered this show in Ohio called the Immortal Fest, and it's July 22nd in Visalia, Ohio. And so it's going to be a cool show. So it brought us out of kind of semi sabbatical to rehearse and get ready for it. And so there might be other shows after that. I don't know. It just depends. When it comes to Deliverance business, that's all Jimmy Brown. I'm the guitar player. I show up. He said, "Bro, we're playing. All right, let me know where and when." And so I kind of leave it like that.
That's really cool. What's it like working with Jimmy?
Oh, it's a lot of fun. The thing is with Jimmy, it's like, he has a style, and I found that over the years, if you don't intrude on it and you just participate in it, it's a lot of fun, you know. And he likes all different styles, so that's why the band's varied over the years, from the early days of thrash to more progressive. But if you listen to it, all the chops are just as hard, difficult as they were playing the hardcore thrash stuff. I mean, being a guitar player in that band, it's very difficult to keep up with him. He's a brilliant rhythm guitar player, so that's why all the albums he does all the rhythms because it makes no sense for me to go in and try to double what he can do so tight, you know so that's kind of how it works recording with him. But yeah, he's a great time, great friend. All the guys are, we were together last weekend in Las Vegas rehearsing our only rehearsal for this gig, but we've done this for years, so these songs are, ingrained in our memory. So it's going to be great, and yeah, it's a fun time.
Speaking of Deliverance, whatever happened with George Okoa?
George is in his own band called Human Code, I believe. They will be at the Immortal Fest as well. I think they're playing on a Sunday. So he's been doing his own project, working with, I guess, the guy from Barren Cross, Mike Lee, as the vocalist. Really don't know much about them. I'll find out, I guess, when I see them in July. So not sure what their sound is like, but I'm sure it's good.
That's awesome. I haven't heard anything out of him in a long time.
Yeah, he had a couple of bands. I mean, he was in and out of Deliverance occasionally on shows. And he had another band called Worldview, I believe. I saw them like 10 years ago, maybe it was, at a festival. Um, really good. I mean, George is a great guitar player, so he's got good stuff.
That's really cool. Well, I'm trying to think of what else I can ask you, Glenn. There's so many things going through my head at the same time. Which
Pick
question
one. You want to
is
you want to
next?
blast from the past?
Yeah, that's what it feels like.
Yeah, really, I know. Let's see.
You have any
What's good?
hobbies outside of music?
Oh, dude, yeah, sure. I mean, I'm into well, I was into ice skating, hockey skating, but injured myself and concussed myself, so I fell and hit my head, and so now I don't do that. But yeah, I mean, I'm a movie holic. Used to work for a movie theater, so like anything sci-fi and fantasy related, that's what we love and we're big fans of. Just recently saw the new Indiana Jones movie. Awesome movie. Love it. And no matter what anyone says, I think it's great. Great way to end the series. And so yeah, so that's what I'm into. Yeah, I'm working on guitars and stuff like that. So a lot of it is just metal related and collecting, metal memorabilia and stuff like that. So
That's really awesome. Do you have a guitar nearby?
yeah, I do, but I gotta like pull it out. So excuse me.
Okay,
Like vamp for a second, okay?
not a problem. This is a segment, everybody, that we call Show Me Your Axe. As Glenn's getting his guitar ready, everybody, we're in anticipation. Ah, look at
You
that
can see it.
beauty.
This is Mike Jackson, Adrian Smith, USA. You can see the USA there.
Yeah,
Anyways, so this is my main axe, but I modified the pickups like I do with all my guitars. I put in Seymour Duncan, uh, Jeff Beck, and this front one I changed to what's called a cool rail, not a hot rail. Gives you more
okay.
bluesy sound. And it's what it sounds like without an amp.
Yeah, I can hear it a little bit. The noise gate likes to block it out a little bit.
Yeah, I don't have an app. I'm in my condo, so unfortunately, I don't have an app. I do everything like with headphones at home, and you know,
Nothing wrong with headphones.
yeah, Well, we got neighbors; they complain. So if
Yeah,
I play too loud,
we don't like the complainers, do we?
No, that's. I try to keep it, under wraps. I have a guy actually who's a neighbor who's he's a guy who plays in a cover band, I think, and so he likes to jam like late at night, pick up his guitar, comes home drunk, and starts jamming. And I'm like, man, dude, I got to get up for work the next day. Can you turn it down?
So he's
So,
wailing away, wasted out of his mind, just doing
yeah,
whatever.
yeah. And then sometimes he freaks out and runs out of the house yelling. I don't know. He's kind of a creepy guy.
You're gonna have to keep that man in your prayers, Glenn.
Oh yeah, yeah, I know. But when he's sober, he's all right. It's just like he gets in a decided to drink mode, and then we're just like paying the price, and it's like, dude, it's like 1 a.m. Can you not play your guitar right now?
That's
I
funny.
know the heavy metal guy complaining about the cover guy keeping me up all night,
Now this is going to be a funny segment in the show talking about that one.
Yeah.
If your
Well,
neighbor's
it's real
drunk
life.
and he plays in a cover band, and
Yeah.
good luck, because it's probably going to sound sloppy.
Well, yeah, he tends to bend flat on a lot of his solos. He's trying to do Pink Floyd, and he's always a little bit not quite on the note. But I think being drunk at the time doesn't help. I mean, I do not play, drink. I've never done that. I just don't see how people can. It's just impossible to play right. So, but some people do it, and good luck to them. But for me, no way. It's just impossible.
Back to talking about movies. Have you ever seen the movie called The Cross and the Switchblade?
No, I have not. Tell me about that.
It's basically the movie about Nicky Cruz.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's based off of the gangs that he was involved in, like, like the Bloods, like the Mau Maus, basically.
Oh, okay.
And
Okay.
then you got the other gang that was involved. I can't remember the name quite offhand. I think it was the Bishops, if I'm not
Interesting.
mistaken. Yeah, it's basically talking about Nicky Cruz and how he got saved by meeting Jesus and all that stuff.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, it's an excellent movie. And Eric Estrada is the one that plays as Nicky Cruz in that movie.
No kidding.
Yep.
That's cool.
As you know,
Mr.
Eric
Ponch
Estrada.
himself.
Yeah. As you know, Nicky Cruz was in that show called Chips.
That's right.
Yeah. I can still hear that music in my head right now. It's so old.
Oh, I know, dude. That was all that driving in the old neighborhoods in LA and in like North Hollywood and stuff like that. I know those freeways and stuff where they close them off, you know. It's kind of funny. It's like, it's interesting is my bass player in Primal is a CHP officer. So
Yeah,
he lives that Chip's life.
that's funny. You gotta call him Chip sometimes, see what he says. You're like,
Yeah,
yo,
his
Chip,
nickname
come here.
his nickname used to be Killer. When he was in Steel Vengeance and back in the early 80s and 90s, he was a bass player and his nickname was Killer because back in those days, all right, we had a thing called CB radios, if you remember that.
Mm.
And that was like a big hobby that people had then. They had CBs and everyone had to have their handle. All right. And so he was a big Iron Maiden fan. He'd always play, the Killers album in the background while he was talking CB talk, right? People ask, what's that? What are you listening to? I'm listening to Killers. And so they just started to use his CB handle as Killer. So he became Killer. But he's a killer bass player too, though.
That's pretty killer.
Yeah, exactly. He'll probably get mad at me talking about it, but that's all right. It's like, yeah, whatever, dude.
Ain't nothing wrong with throwing a couple of puns in there here and there.
Exactly.
That's great.
Awesome, bro. So cool, man. So yeah, so Primal's basically just let me tell you about the first album a little bit if you guys want to check it out. We did a song that's sung in Spanish, but Rudy Sarzo was a guest bass player on our album. So any fans of Quiet Riot and Rudy, check out the first album because he played on one song, and he was a producer who worked with our singer Beto in Argentina with this band called Logos. They were a Christian Argentine band, so everything is in Spanish. So it's kind of interesting how that world of metal it's so kind of disjointed from ours because we're used to American and English bands. Their market is completely Spanish, and it's a lot of great bands down there that people don't even know about. Logos is one of them. V8 was another band he was in that was like the original heavy metal band from Argentina back in the early '80s, and that was when Argentina had a dictatorship. And so they really had to struggle to play metal down there during that time. So it's a very interesting thing to check out. So some of the songs we play in our live set will be from V8 and the Logos, when we go down there. So our set is a bit mixture of Spanish and English. So we can do both. So that's which is kind of different about our show, depending on where we play. So we can gear it up for in America, it's going to be all English. Depending on, if we play in certain areas that are really Latin rich, so we'll break out some of the Spanish songs. So yeah, check it out. It's really cool stuff.
Speaking of South American bands, there's a lot of death metal bands over in Chile.
Oh yeah, yeah. I played Chile with Hyrax. It's a beautiful country. I mean, we met a lot of those bands down there.
Yeah,
And
there's bands like Homicide, Iconoclast,
yeah, yeah, really cool stuff.
Hexagram, to name another one,
Yeah,
Atomic Aggressor.
cool. Well, you know your bands.
Yeah,
So
there's a lot of them out there, man. I could name a band with any letter from the alphabet, A
yeah,
through.
I know. I mean, it's like it's funny because a lot of bands have the same name. Because I was looking around and how many bands have Primal and how many bands have Heretic and Deliverance. And depending on the time of the year and the country, they're there. But it's interesting how nobody argues and fights over. I thought of the name first. We don't see that like back in the 80s. Like I remember when Vengeance came out, or Vengeance Rising, the first they were going to be called Vengeance here in the States. And then they got a letter from a lawyer from the band in I think they're from Denmark, the band Vengeance. So they told them you can't use the name Vengeance, so that's why they switched to Vengeance Rising. But I haven't seen that anymore really. I mean, bands just if you get the name and you make it big enough, then you kind of own it.
It's really interesting that you bring up that name, Vengeance Rising, because I was just about to do that myself, but you beat me to it.
There you go.
You beat me to the punch, Glenn.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, Rock's Records is actually reissuing the Human Sacrifice album. There you go, Bill. There's your plug. Um, and I wrote like some of the liner notes for it, kind of going over my time, when I was really not technically in Vengeance Rising. I was in the band that would become Vengeance Rising. That's where, the songs that are on that first album I wrote, how they got there. Because I played with Doug, the guitar player, and Roger, the bass player, previously. And so they kind of kept those songs around. And when they formed the band with Roger Martin or Roger Martinez and Larry and Glenn Mancaruso, they brought those in, because they needed something to start playing with. So that was the first set of songs. And they ended up on the demo and on the first album. So cool, but at least I get my royalties from it. So that's awesome.
Do you see any of the other albums being remastered or remixed, like say Destruction Comes?
And you know what? I mean, they have in the past. Um, I don't know if they're going to or not, or when they will. I mean, I think they started with Vengeance, the Human Sacrifice record, so maybe they'll do Once Dead and then move on to the next ones. I really don't know. That's up to the label guys, and I'm sure they will because they tend to reissue them and maybe mess around with the mastering a little bit, make it more up to date and modern sounding. Um, so I'm sure that probably in the card, but I don't know, to be honest.
It's interesting because for the longest time they were on Intense Records, just like Deliverance.
Yeah. Yeah, that's kind of how we got all started. I remember when Doug and Larry showed up and they gave me the demo, which had the songs on them, and then they signed with Intense. And so the story goes that the producer and owner of Intense Records, uh, they were recording the songs I wrote, White Throne, Burn, Beheaded, and Human Sacrifice. And he liked those songs a lot. And so he's asking, well, who's the writer? And they're like, Glenn wrote it. He's Glenn, who? Glenn, the drummer? No, Glenn Rogers. Who's that? Well, he's in Deliverance. And next thing you know, Pastor Bob Beeman's like contacting us and said, hey, they want to offer you a deal. So uh, they came to our rehearsal and they offered us a contract. And, so we signed with them. And next thing you know, a year later, we finally got to go in the studio. It was just kind of funny thing with them. The honest truth of what happened is, they didn't have any money to put us in the studio, so they kind of strung us along by saying, "Your songs aren't good enough. We need more demos." So we spent a year just recording anything to send them. We would get 4 track and try to do a real proper sounding demo for them. We finally ended up doing a crappy ghetto blaster, which is so sick of it. Jimmy brought in his own little like Emerson ghetto blaster, just all right, let's just record rehearsals, send them the tape. And they said, okay, you're good enough, we're going to put you in the studio. And we're just like, to this day we laugh about it. It's like, but the honest truth is that they finally got some cash and they put us in there. It's like, okay, cool.
It's amazing.
Yeah, yeah, the funny stories of those days, and then how we got Bill Matoyer to produce it. was a good story because I had worked and were friends with other bands that were on Metal Blade. The band Viking and Heretic are really good friends of mine. And later I had ended up joining Heretic. But I was working a show with Viking at Fender's Ballroom. They were opening for Dark Angel. And Bill Matoyer happened to show up there, and we're all backstage after the gig talking. And I asked Bill, hey, I just, my band signed with Intense Records, would you be interested in producing our record? And so that's kind of how it got going. And then I got Bill in touch with our label, and boom, there we go. Bill's doing Deliverance, and he did our first album. And that was an awesome sounding record. He did such a great job with it.
That's great. Speaking of Bill Matoyer, he also helped out with Mortification a little bit.
Yeah, that kind of opened the door for him in the Christian bands, because Intense, once they got in with them, I know he did work with Vengeance, he did Mortification, he did Weapons of Our Warfare. He mixed that one, and I think he worked with Tourniquet as well, I believe.
Yeah, Tourniquet. That's another.
Yeah. So you're welcome, guys.
It kind of makes me laugh a little bit because not too many people give Christian bands a chance. They just want to go towards the underground, and find all these different bands. I mean, I like it all, really. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah, I mean, it's good metal music. I mean, it's just, I think at the time people were, it's kind of an us against them kind of mentality, but I mean, Deliverance, we played with all the regular bands because, I mean, one, I was friends with them before I became a Christian. I was playing in a band called Blind Decree with Brett, who was in Viking, and Mike Gonzalez, who, was in Dark Angel afterwards. We were all kind of in that SoCal metal scene doing kind of thrash and thrash like music. So we all knew each other, and we'd all gig at the same places and stuff like that. Deliverance, we played with Omen, we played with, other bands that came through, LA. So it was just kind of, I think later I think the mainstream part of it just, they didn't really appreciate us, and we kind of get forgotten about. Like anytime you see the top thrash metal bands of the 80s and 90s, they don't mention Deliverance or Vengeance at all. But fans know those albums are awesome records. So, you know, they will put us against, any of those bands, and we're just as good. The production's great. The songs are heavy. The vocals, I thought we had Jimmy's an awesome singer. And we kind of had that over a lot of those other bands. I think we had better vocalists.
Yeah, Jimmy knows how to hit those really high notes.
Yeah, I mean, it was funny because Brett and I, because Brett was my friend, for during Christian metal and non-metal, whatever, Brett was, he'd always laugh. He said Jimmy to him sounded like a 454 engine, when you just started up, you get that vibrato thing going on. And, he could hit those high notes and throw in that vibrato, and it was just killer. Not a lot of people doing that, but he could.
I mean, he could probably be like King Diamond, even though it's not falsetto.
Yeah, I mean, back in those days, yeah, he could hit those notes. As we age, we can't hit those notes anymore, not like that. But it's still the voice is still there. I mean, it's just yeah, we had a good band, and that's why Bill liked us. He didn't care about any of that stuff. He was just like we were a good band, and that first record. I mean, it made it all the way to Sweden and all sorts of countries. And it's funny, I got an email from I don't know if you know the band Wolf out of Sweden.
I'm familiar with the name. I just don't know the music.
Yeah, I've toured with them with Hyrax, and we played some shows in Germany with them. And Nick, the singer guitar player, we were kind of going back and forth. We remained friends, and he sent me a photo of him with the very first Deliverance album cover. He's like, yeah, I knew this stuff, dude. It's like when I was a
Wow.
kid, it was. I'm like, dude, that's awesome. So I mean, yeah, people. I mean, it was good metal music. I think people don't really care so much. They if it's good, it's good.
That's pretty much how I look at it too.
Yeah.
Where do you see yourself in the next 5 years, Glenn?
Hopefully playing more shows with Primal and shows with Deliverance. I'm still going to keep playing. Um, I have a pretty decent job. My family life is good, and we're pretty much okay in life. So as long as the world doesn't explode, you know, I hope to keep playing music. The thing is, I realize you just can't stop. No matter how old you get, you're always going to play. I mean, I was to bring up a story in my past. I in the mid '90s, I was friends with John Lee Hooker, the blues legend, and it's kind of a funny story how I got to know him, but I got to know him, and that guy kept going forever and ever and ever. Till until I think he was in '92 when he was 92 when he passed, I believe, and he would not stop. There's just in his blood to play and to keep creating. So I mean, that's kind of the thing God gave me, is this ability to make metal music, and so I'm going to keep doing it till I physically can't anymore, or I absolutely don't want to. But right now in 5 years, yeah, I'm going to still be playing.
That's awesome. What would you like to say to your fans?
Hey, you know what? Everyone out there, thank you for your support and keeping it going. Because to me, without you, we wouldn't be doing this. I mean, I kind of my thing with my wife is kind of like, I'll keep going until they don't care anymore. And if they don't care anymore, then that's a sign to me to stop. But the thing is, people keep writing and they keep caring and asking, when are we going to play? It's just, hopefully one day we'll be in a position where, financially it makes sense to do more shows. But, that's the thing. It's like, it costs money to get out and go play, in Colorado and go play in Texas and stuff like that. They don't realize that it's not free. And, working a job, you can't keep sacrificing so much to do that, without help. So, but the fans help. So reach out to the promoters and let them know, hey, you want us in your town, and help us get there, and we'll come.
Very, very cool. Well, my last question for you, Glenn, is do you have any final words for Underground Noise Webzine?
And I just want to say thanks for reaching out and really supporting us. And I'd love to do it again. And maybe I can grab Jimmy or grab some of the other guys in Primal. And I just need more lead time to work them into it, and we can all come on and have a fun time.
That'd be awesome. It'd be good to have Jimmy on my show.
Yeah, I will mention it to him, and I'll send him when I know this will go out, and I'll send him the link to check it out. And hey Jim, it's gonna be fun. Come on.
Killer. Sorry, I had to throw that out there.
That's all right, bro.
Thanks for your time today, Glenn. It's been a blast.
Thank you, Alex. Take care, man.
You too, buddy. Thank you.
Okay. Bye-bye.